Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary and welcome to part 4 of my high-end decor Dollar Dupe makeover series. In this video, I'll be taking on the modern farmhouse chic of Magnolia home decor. In part 1 of the series, I did pieces from Anthropologie. In part 2, pieces from Pottery Barn, including a very popular dupe of a reclaimed wood mirror. And in part 3, decor pieces from West Elm. And I will link a playlist here and in the description if you'd like to check those out. But for now, let's jump into this video with Project 1 and a Dollar Dupe of Magnolia's ceramic and wood tiered tray, retailing at $35. I'm going to start with a Dollar Tree plunger and I'm going to just unscrew the rubber top from the pole. Next I took a tape measure and just measured down and marked at 5 inches and then again at 1 foot. And then I proceeded to cut the pole at those marks using my saw and miter box. Once cut, I used some sandpaper to smooth out the rough edges and also to remove any remaining adhesive from the sticker. Also, I just want to point out that you need to sand the ends smooth enough so that you can stand them up on end and they will stand up by themselves. In order to stabilize the poles for the tray, they need to have a wider base, and so I wanted to use some wood circles to add those to the bottom of the poles. But unfortunately, my Dollar Tree only had these flowers on hand, so I'm going to just make do with these and create a circle shape by tracing the bottom of a candle onto the flower, and then I'll just cut it out with some scissors. Next, I'm going to stain both the rounds and the poles with some wood stain in the color Gunstock. Once the first coat of stain is dry, I will go back and add a second coat. While the wood pieces are drying, I'm going to go back to my rubber topper and I want to cut out the piece of the plunger right where it screws onto the pole. So first I'm going to just use a utility knife to roughly cut around that area just to free up that center piece. And then once I've freed up that center piece, I'll just go back with some scissors and clean up the edges, making a nice round center piece. Then I will again take some sandpaper to smooth out the rough edges, as well as sand the entire surface of the piece so that I can apply a light coat of stain to color the cut edges and bring the color of the whole piece more in line with the poles and the rounds. And then once the stain was dry, it was time to assemble the pieces, and so I just took the rubber topper and screwed that right back onto the pole. And then to attach the wood rounds and the poles, I used some Titebond glue, and you can use wood glue here as well, and just glued the two pieces together, and then just clean up any of the excess glue that comes out around the bottom, and then I'll just set that aside to set up. For the longer pole, I'm going to use a wood round at each end, and again just apply it with some of the Titebond glue. For the plates, I'll be using 2 plates from the Dollar Tree, a dinner plate and a salad plate. And then to create the edging on the sides, I'm going to be using some hazelnut colored chalk paint from Waverly, and I'll just use a makeup brush and go around the edges gently to create that pattern there along the edges. I let the glue on the risers dry overnight to make sure it had enough time for the pieces to adhere and for the glue to cure. I then went ahead and gave the risers a couple coats of polyurethane, except I didn't want to paint at the tops of the wood rounds since I will be applying glue there and don't want the polyurethane to interfere with the adhesion. I'm using my favorite Rust-Oleum triple thick polyurethane, and it comes in a nice clear satin finish. To assemble the tray, I'm again going to be using the Titebond Quick and Thick glue, and I just applied a nice thin even layer to the bottoms of both of the wood rounds. And then I just placed the risers in the center of the plates. The larger riser went to the larger plate and the smaller riser to the smaller plate. To make sure the riser was centered, I took a ruler and measured all the way around the plate, and since the glue was still pliable, I could shift the riser if needed. I then again let these pieces dry overnight before again attaching the two pieces together with some Titebond glue. And now here you can see the finished project with the two tiers glued together. Now the original has that flared top made out of wood, and we had to use the rubber topper to get that flare effect in the Dollar Dupe. And also the pole is not drilled through the plates, so you can't carry this tray around by the pole, and the rounds were also needed to stabilize. However, the two trays are approximately the same size, and the Dollar Dupe does give you that same modern farmhouse chic look, but at a much better price. For the next project, I'll be doing the Milo lantern in small, retailing at $16. To start, I'm going to make some spackle paint using 2 parts of this steel colored Waverly chalk paint and then 1 part of the spackle. I'm going to just mix those two together until they're nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to take one of the Dollar Tree magnetic containers. Now you can get these in the office section at Dollar Tree. And this one here is the plastic one. They do have the metal one, but the glass I'm going to be using doesn't fit as well into the metal one. And I would suggest using this one. However, it does come in a gray color, which would have been better for this project, but I had this one on hand and this is the one I'm using. And then as you can see, all I'm doing is painting on a nice thin coat of the paint. I'm going to let that dry and go ahead and add 2 more coats after that. And I will be painting both the inside and outside of the container. And then here's what it looks like after 3 coats of the paint have been applied and have dried. And then I'm going to just go back with some sandpaper and sand it down to a nice smooth finish. To get an even smoother finish, I just dip my fingertips into some water and then rub the sides of the container, just smoothing out all of the ridges and little lines even further. And then my container was ready for some faux finishing. And so I started with a little bit of this cinnamon colored craft paint. And I just went along the edges of the canister, both top and bottom. And then also in the middle section, just added some little dashes and dots and lines along the surface. And then once the cinnamon paint was completely dry, I took some dark gray chalk paint and using one of those chip brushes from the Dollar Tree, I just dipped the tip of the paintbrush into the dark gray paint and just began pouncing that along the sides of the container, just making little dark gray marks all the way along. Next, I took some white and also some sterling silver colored chalk paint and mixed the two together. And I also added a little bit of water to that mixture as well in order to create more of like a very thin glaze type top coat. And again, just using that chip brush, I dip the tips in and I'm just creating kind of a swirling pattern in the white or light gray paint on top. And I'm just swirling the brush around and just creating that faux finish on top. And then this hurricane style glass from the Dollar Tree fits perfectly inside, and you can glue it there with some E6000 or leave it separate to make it easier to clean. And now here you can see the finished project next to the original. Now the Dollar Dupe is somewhat smaller than even the smallest version of the Magnolia Milo lantern, but you can use this same technique with a larger vase you may already have around the house, or pick one up at a thrift store and match with a larger bottom. You can even recycle a large lid and create a larger version for not much more cost. Next up is the reclaimed wood footed tray, retailing for $56. To start, I'm going to be using one of these Dollar Tree Welcome Bunny signs. I'm going to just remove the hanger as well as the bunny tail. I'll be using some strips of balsa wood that I've cut down to size to cover the top of the sign. And you can get balsa wood at the craft stores for about $2 per 3-foot strip after coupon. To attach the wood pieces, I'm again going to use some of the Type Bond glue. I'm going to just put it on top liberally and then spread it around with a foam brush to make sure that I'm getting a nice even coat of the glue and that the pieces will stick properly. And I'll just apply the wood pieces and finally weight them down with some books to make sure it dries evenly. For the feet, I'll be using some Dollar Tree Jenga blocks, and I'll glue 2 of them together lengthwise to create a pair, then glue that pair to another pair to create a 4-piece Jenga block, and then I will repeat that process to create the other 3 feet. For the sides of the tray, I'm going to be using some painter sticks that I picked up at Walmart. They come in a package, 3 for $1. But before I do any cutting on those, I do want to distress the wood a little bit. I'm going to start with the tray top, and since that's covered with the balsa wood, I am able to easily distress that. With a screwdriver, I just went ahead and made some little holes and lines in the wood. However, the painter sticks are made out of a heavier pine wood and not as easy to distress. So I went ahead and took them outside to the sidewalk and just began scraping the wood sticks along the sidewalk, and the little pebbles and stones in the cement did create a nice distressing, some nice scrapes for my wood. And then my wood was ready to stain, and I used Minwax wood stain in the color Special Walnut. To make the tray sides, I took the paint sticks and just measured right on the tray, taking the stick end to end and then just marking with a pencil where it needed to be cut. And then I did this for both sides. I cut the sticks with my miter box and saw, but unfortunately I was not able to get 2 sides into one stick. And you can see there where it kind of, the second stick would have gone into that dippy part, which would be fine too. It wasn't, because this is that distressed look, reclaimed wood look. But I did go ahead and use a spare piece that I had, or a scrap piece that I had from another project to get the proper size of the side. And then I attached the sides using some Titebond glue as well as some hot glue for that immediate hold. And then once the glue on the short sides was dry, I went back with another paint stick and measured across for the long side. And now I am making sure that the ends of the short sides are covered when I mark. And then the 2 long sides were also glued in place. And then once the glue was dry on those, I flipped it over and attached the little feet, again using the Titebond glue. And then when those were dry, I gave the whole piece another coat of stain and then finished up with a couple coats of polyurethane. And then here you can see the finished piece next to the original. And although the Dollar Dupe is 4 inches shorter and 2 inches less wide than the original, it's still pretty sizable at 13.5 by 9.5 inches and has a very similar look to the original with considerable savings. For the last project, I wanted to do another basket, and I know that Magnolia does some beautiful baskets for Target's Hearth and Hand collection by Magnolia, and I found these beautiful Hudson baskets that range in price and are about $30 each. For this dupe, I'm actually going to be using some Dollar Tree baskets. Now, these are pretty flimsy, but a quick hack to create a more durable and sturdy basket would be to just put 2 of the Dollar Tree baskets together. And so you have to be careful though, when you're in the store, you need to find 2 that fit well together. Now these 2 actually do fit well, but it's the reverse. I have to put one inside the other versus vice versa. So you see that those same 2 baskets fit very well, just flipping them around. So just find 2 baskets that fit well together, and you'll see how it creates quite a nice and sturdy basket. Now to further take these baskets up a few notches, all I'm going to do is stain the inside and outside of the baskets with some wood stain. I'll be using Minwax in the color Dark Walnut, even though that's really not the color of the original piece. It's just the color that I want to use because it'll match something better in the room I want to place it in. And so that is the beauty as well of doing things DIY. You get to choose the shading that you prefer. And you can see how quickly and easily the stain goes onto the basket, and it's amazing what a rich and luxurious effect it gives. And even though I am placing these one basket inside the other, I am coating both the inside and outside of each basket. To join the two baskets together, as well as give a more unified look, I'm going to be adding a strip of this nautical rope that I got from Dollar Tree. I'm going to just hot glue it right into the crease and glue the rope to both the top and bottom baskets. Again, holding them together as well as creating a decorative touch. To create the handles, I cut a 6-inch piece of the rope, and then for the little brackets on the end, I used the headband from a Happy Birthday tiara. Now there are 2 wires that run along the length of the headband, and so what I did was I cut just to the inside of those wires on each side, and that still gave me a pretty nice band of headband in between to use. To tone down the shininess a bit, I took some dark gray craft paint, just added a little water to thin it out a bit, and then I just took a piece of paper towel and just pounced it along the silver, and that just gave it more of a distressed, aged look. And then I just took some hot glue, put that at the end of the rope, and attached the metal there at the bottom, then wound the strip around twice before bringing it back to the back again and adding a little more hot glue, attaching it, and then cutting off the end. When attaching the handle to the basket, I made sure to find the spot where the rope that goes around the rim started and stopped so that I could cover it there with the handle and the bracket. And then I just glued the other side of the handle with some hot glue, and then again the other side of the handle, or on the handle on the other side of the basket, just directly across from the first handle. And then you can see how cute it is once it all comes together. Now, of course, it's not an exact dupe because it does have the rope around the rim as well as the darker color, but it does look pretty close to the original. There is one critical flaw, however. It's not a Magnolia dupe. Oh my goodness, this is something I did not realize until I went back to the Target page to get the dimension info. And I'm looking at it going, wait a second, why did this come up? It comes up with the Magnolia search, but it is in fact not. But they are made by a manufacturer named Tag, but I think it comes up with the Magnolia search because I think Tag was inspired by Magnolia. So there we go, still Magnolia inspired. Well, I hope you have enjoyed part 4 of my high-end decor Dollar Dupe makeover series, featuring home decor from Magnolia. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Be sure to check back next week to see which high-end retailer I take on next. And if you haven't seen the previous videos in this series, I will link them here and in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.